Howdy, everybody. It's an absolute pleasure and a blessing to be back with another Reading with Rick. Today, we're going to be doing William Faulkner's As I Lay Dying. I somehow made it through an entire English degree, a bachelor's English degree, without reading much William Faulkner. I might have read some of his short fiction, I believe, but I picked this novel up when I started my graduate program, and it absolutely blew my socks off. We're going to read a short section that comes pretty early in the novel. Just to give some background without spoiling anything, the wife and mother of this family has died. Let's see, Addie Bundren, and we're going to see some of her family, how some of her family members, you're going to get to be introduced to some of them in this section we read. And then we'll talk some about some of the ways that Faulkner works his literary magic in this book. It was long past midnight when we drove the last nail, and almost dusk dawn when I got back home and taken the team out and got back in bed, with Cora's nightcap laying on the other pillow. And be darned if even then it wasn't like I could still hear Cora singing, and feel that boy leaning forward between us like he was ahead of the mules, and still see Cash going up and down with that saw, and Ann standing there like a scarecrow, like he was a steer standing knee-deep in a pond, and somebody come by and set the pond up on edge, and he ain't missed it yet. And it was nigh toward daybreak when we drove that last nail and toted it into the house, where she was laying on the bed with the window open and the rain blowing on her again. Twice he did it, and him so dead for sleep that Cora says his face looked like one of these here Christmas masks that had done been buried a while and then dug up, until at last they put her into it and nailed it down so he couldn't open the window on her no more. And the next morning they found him in his shirt tail, laying asleep on the floor like a felled steer, and the top of the box bored clean full of holes, and Cash's new auger broke off in the last one. When they taken the lid off, they found that two of them had bored on into her face. If it's a judgment, it ain't right, because the Lord's got more to do than that. He's bound to have, because the only burden Ann's Bundren's ever had is himself. And when folks talks him low, I think to myself, he ain't that less of a man, or he couldn't have bore himself this long. So something that really struck me as I was reading this novel is, you get to introduce to all these characters, right? Even in that short little section there, we see Cora. We see Cora, we see Cash, we see Ann's, who is Addie's husband, the woman who's passed away. It's her husband. We see, I believe he's talking about a young boy who has done this to the coffin. That's kind of like trying to get in to see her. And I was trying to figure out whose point of view we're in here. This is Toll's point of view, so one of the sons. And that's something that's really impressive about this book, is that like almost every chapter is jumping around to different point of views. There's so many characters, and yet it doesn't feel overwhelming. Faulkner sustains it. He builds tension using that kind of revolving POV, that revolving point of view. And another thing is they all have these actions. They all have these roles. Like you see there mentioned how Ann's is just kind of standing there. We got Cash up and down on the saw. That's something he's been doing consistently, like the entire time, is just working, just kind of focusing on building this coffin the entire time, and very mechanical and just in this motion. It's truly, it's one of those things that touches the heart, in just how, it's this heartbreaking moment where they've lost this family member. And he uses that to kind of reveal character in all these people, to reveal their own little tics, their own little quirks. And it's interesting because here, Addie Bundren's dead like almost the entire novel. I believe she's sick and on her way out, basically, when it first starts. They're kind of anticipating it. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure she's kind of on her deathbed when the novel starts. And even though she's passed on and her body is just present throughout this novel, I mean, she remains a presence. She remains a character that has, her own weight in the scene, her own weight in the in the plot as it moves forward. And speaking in those kinds of terms, I talked about how they each have their kind of role, but even in the short excerpt we just read, you see how masterful Faulkner is at setting the stage. Like I said, they each have their place. They each have something they're doing. They're busy, even though it's kind of that point where it's winding down, and they're about to start their journey. They finished the coffin. They're dealing with this heartbreak, and there's still just so much going on. Even in that moment of what does he say? It's when they drop the last nail. It's like past midnight or close to dawn. So great read. As I Lay Dying, William Faulkner, a true master. I need to read some more Faulkner. I was surprised just how quick I read this book. I mean, it's a pretty short book. It's a pretty short novel. And the way he, like I said, he's jumping around from these point of views, and it moves fast. It gets going, and it's hard to put down. Check it out. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment if you're a fan of Faulkner. If you got any recommendations of Faulkner, I'd love to hear them. Check us out over at stoveleg.com. As always, some cool stuff going on there. And I appreciate y'all. God bless you. I love you. Peace out.